Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their life for freedom. I'm going to teach you how to upgrade your health, money, and mindset so you can have more energy, time freedom, and financial independence. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. Okay, this is super weird. I'm recording for the first time in my office since we've really begun selling off a lot of our furniture. Because if you haven't heard, our landlord sold the house, but instead of jumping into another rental property, we're going to take this time to travel. And I think it's going to be so fun. We're not going to have a home base for a while. Our life is going into a storage locker. But my point is, we have been spending the last 2 weeks, depending on when you're listening to this is being recorded in July, but we've been selling off our furniture. And the room is really echoey now. And it reminds me of when we first moved into this house and this room had no furniture yet. And I was recording in the master closet because the sound quality was so much better. But we're going to go with it. We're recording the podcast today in my slowly emptying office. We've pretty much just got a room and a rug and a desk and my computer right now. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about something that I have used with my clients inside of my Becoming Limitless program to help them achieve success. And what I specifically mean by success is that consistency with their health habits, but not just consistency and sustainability, but like how can they do this and make it fun. So what I'm teaching you today is something that I call the experimenter's mindset. And it is what I feel is key for making health fun. I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast for very long, if you haven't, by the way, welcome. My name's Tanessa. Nice to meet you. But if you've been listening to the podcast a while, you'll know that like for me, if it's not fun, I don't do it. And this applied like literally it was the motto while we were pregnant with our babies. Like this is going to be fun. We're going to have fun doing this. We're going to make this an experience. It's the motto we're going by when we travel, when we, our landlord sold our house. It's all about fun. And this is actually what I feel has made my health so consistent is because I'm always thinking about it being fun. It's never from a place of punishing myself or beating myself up because I didn't do it. Because my consistency is really good, but I'm not perfect all of the time. I'm a human, and sometimes I prioritize other things over my health, and sometimes my health is prioritized, right? But this mindset that I'm going to be teaching you about today is called the experimenter's mindset. And like I said, I teach it inside of my programs, and it is what has made everything so fun. So I want you to listen through this episode today with the lens of like, how could I frame my goals in my life, with my health, with my energy, my focus, my vitality, even your business? Heck, how can I frame this through this experimenter's mindset? So first of all, we got to back up, because if we don't know where we're going wrong, it's harder to see why we need this mindset. So let's imagine one of those times where you feel like you are in a bit of an energy slump. Maybe you haven't worked out in 6 weeks because your business got busy, or you've been starting to work later and later at night, and you've been grabbing a little more takeout that you're just kind of feeling in an energy slump. You don't feel as good as you want to feel, and you decide it is time to get out of this slump. Like, when you just have those like, let's go. Something needs to change, right? You are ready for things to start moving because you are tired of being in this just like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's not the way I want it to be. So you're ready for a change, and you're over feeling tired, and you're over feeling unhealthy, and you're over feeling like you have headaches all the time, whatever it is, right? So this is where we go wrong, keep in mind. So you're in this state and you decide like, okay, things are going to change. We're making a plan. And you sit down, and maybe, I don't know, for me, I like to do it with pen and paper. Maybe you got your Google Calendar open, or your whatever your favorite notebook journal is, and you decide to sit down and you make a plan. And you make this really detailed plan, right? It's well-rounded. It hits all the major things. And you're sitting there and you're like, okay, we're going to work out 5 days a week. And it's going to be great because I haven't worked out in 6 weeks and I don't like the way I feel. Also, I'm going to stop eating all processed foods, and it's going to be all whole foods because this will help my blood sugar. This will help my energy. It's going to be so great. So all of my food is now going to be unprocessed food. Also, I'm going to start going to bed at 10 p.m. every night because I've been going to bed at 12:30 or 1 on and off for like the last 3 months. And I know that sleep is important for me. So 10 p.m. every single night, bedtime. Oh, and I'm also going to make sure I'm meditating before I go to bed. So I'm going to do that for 15 minutes. You get where I'm going with this? It's like you sit down, you make the plan, and it is the perfect plan. And I use air quotes around that, right? You've covered all your bases, your sleep, your stress, and it feels really good. And you go to work on the plan. But I mean, we've all made this plan before, right? Because think about it. Do you ever find that when you make the plan, it feels like you're being productive and you get a dopamine hit from it and you're like, yes, progress. I'm not in the slump anymore. But if we're going to have an honest conversation with each other, we know where this ends, right? It ends with you feeling overwhelmed. Your health now feels like a giant demanding task. You're like, I don't even know how to fit in 2 of these workouts per week, never mind 5. And if I suddenly cut out an hour extra of work every day, where am I stuffing that in? And you want me to cook and meal prep too? And nightly meditation, heck, I'd just be happy if I can get the kids to bed on time and get into bed, right? And we have this demanding to-do list now. And maybe it worked at the beginning when you had all that initial motivation and you're like, yes, let's go. And now you're just like, holy moly, my schedule is too tight for this. This doesn't fit. How am I supposed to run a business and do all these things with my health and be a parent and all your other obligations? Like, oh my gosh. And so what ends up happening, you slip on one thing, slip on 2 things, and then you say, screw it. What the heck is the point? My business gives me instant gratification, or my kids give me instant gratification. And so I'll just lean into that. I'll work on this health stuff later. And then we get into this cycle, right? And not only that, like we know that this cycle leads to a lot of us and our brains saying things like, I've never been able to be consistent before. I always fail at these type of things. We get a lot of these beliefs and they feel terrible, right? So are you identifying with this now, right? You know what I'm talking about. We get into this place. Now, I'm going to be telling you how I solve this problem for my clients inside of my Becoming Limitless program and what I do with myself. And it is called, like I said, the experimenter's mindset. It is so simple. Are you ready for it? You make one change for 1 week. And you're like, huh? It's that simple? You wanted me to listen to this podcast for that? But I want to talk to you about it, okay? And I want to tell you why it's amazing. One change for 1 week. Here's what you're going to ask yourself. And remember, you are starting right now. You're ready to get out of your rut. Your brain wants to make a perfect plan, okay? What one change could you make to your health this week for only 1 week? Now, I want you to hear the difference, because what we do is, what 10 changes could I make right now forever? Meaning, does your brain ever really believe when you start a 5-day-a-week exercise plan after not working out for 6 weeks that you're going to stick to it for a week or two? No, you genuinely believe like, okay, I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to stick to it forever, right? And so that is partly why we get so disappointed, was because that plan really never fit our life. And then when real life happens and we can't do that, we get bummed out because like, I can never do what I say I'm going to do. I don't have any discipline. I don't have any consistency. This never works for me, right? Well, of course, you took all of these things that require time and shoved them into your schedule, likely without actually going through your schedule and asking yourself, what might need to come off the schedule to make room for this, right? So instead of adding all the things forever, what one change could you make to your health this week for only 1 week? And here's why I say 1 week. This mindset gets buy-in from your skeptical, change-resistant brain. So our brains are naturally designed, they're prehistoric brains still. They want to stay in the cave. They don't want anything that's hard. They don't want to make changes. They want to keep you safe. And you're out here being like, let's go exercise. And your brain's like, that is a big use of energy. It requires change. I don't like change. Can't we just keep sitting on the couch? Like, why do we have to do this? Like, this is your brain, right? And that skeptical brain is like, and you want me to do this forever? I don't even want to do it once. And so when I offer the experimenter's mindset, it's kind of like, what could we experiment with your health for 1 week? And then your skeptical brain goes, well, I could do that for 1 week, but not forever, but just for 1 week. And we're like, okay, skeptical brain, we have your buy-in. And I love this. So for example, if I'm like, okay, I really want to start upping my protein intake, for example, because I checked out my protein and I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I'm getting 30 grams at breakfast, but right now I'm getting 20. Okay, what could I change for my breakfast this week to get to 30 grams of protein? And naturally, what's going to happen is your brain is going to offer all these excuses about why it can't do it. Well, if I need more protein, I'm going to have to cook different meals. I'm going to have to look for different recipes. And then I'm going to have to make more time in the mornings. And it's just so hard. But could you do it for a week? I bet you could, right? And it's an experiment. And I'm going to tell you, here's how to come up with an experiment, okay? So you're going to come up with a hypothesis. We're going back to science grade 8 for this year. We're going to come up with a hypothesis. And your hypothesis is, if I add 10 grams of protein per day to breakfast to get me from 20 to 30, I will have more stable blood sugar. It'll help me feel better. I will stay fuller, whatever it is, right? Create a plan to try it. Okay, in order to do that, I'm going to need to add this much protein powder to my smoothie. I'm going to need to add shredded chicken to my breakfast. I'm going to need to cook this many eggs, right? Come up with a plan, and then you're going to implement the plan. And as you implement it, you're going to be observing, and you're going to be like, how am I feeling with this added protein? Am I feeling snacky mid-morning? What's my energy like in the afternoon? What is my food choices like for lunch after I've had protein? Like, how am I feeling? Am I recovering better from my workouts? You're observing, right? Then you're going to review the data. And the data is just all the observations you've had over the week. And then you're going to draw a conclusion from it, right? And you're going to be like, okay, well, I noticed that after adding 10 grams of protein, yes, I had to originally do a little bit more planning, but that's a one-time thing and it's done. And now I notice I don't get so snacky in the mornings. And I notice because of that, I make better choices at lunch and I don't get an afternoon energy crash. All right, I like it. I have a conclusion that I've come to that my experiment worked after 1 week, okay? I'm going to give you another example. Let's say the idea of removing screens 60 minutes before bed seems very overwhelming or completely unenjoyable because, like, I got to tell you, removing screens, phones, tablets, computers, whatever it is, TVs, in an hour before bed will not only let you have time to properly wind down without being stimulated by a screen, but it does such wonderful things for your sleep architecture. And specifically, it helps with so many of the things that make you entrepreneurs, like the type of sleep that is screwed with when you look at screens before bed is REM sleep. And REM sleep is responsible for problem solving and thinking out of the box and emotional management, all the things basically that make us really good entrepreneurs, right? And so I really recommend 60 minutes. But for a lot of people, that seems very overwhelming because we're used to doom scrolling to bed or watching Netflix until 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes before bed, right? And this is the question I would then ask myself, like, what if I just did 20 minutes of no screens before bed? Because right now I'm on my phone up until the moment I go to bed. What if I only did 20 minutes of no screens and I committed for 1 week? Could I do that? Could I turn my screens off 20 minutes before bed for a week, right? The answer is probably yes. I mean, for a week, sure. Because if at the end of the week is over and I don't have to do it, fine. Then at the end of the week, I assess what worked. What did I like about it? Did I feel better? Did I sleep better? Did I have time to connect with my husband more? Did I have time to do my physio exercises? Or did I have time to do my skincare routine? Like, what worked about it? And also what didn't work, right? Because here's the thing. If at the end of the week of your experiment, you hated doing it, you are welcome to drop it. There is no rule book going around where someone is saying, this is how you have to live your life. This is what you have to do with your health. Right? So by getting that buy-in from your skeptical brain and offering yourself just 1 week to try one new thing, and either at the end it worked or at the end you hated it, you now have data for which to make a decision. And I always say to my clients, like, why don't you just try it for a week? And if at the end of the week you hate it, you never have to do it again. But at least you'll have tried, right? But here's the crazy thing. Let's use our screen example we were talking about. Let's say you get to the end of the week and you feel better. Maybe you'll want to keep it because you're like, you know what? I feel better and that's kind of worth no screens 20 minutes before bed. I like it. Or maybe you bump it up to 30 minutes of no screens before bed for the next week. And you slowly implement these layered changes 1 week at a time, always making decisions based on you and what works for you. right? And I like making any decision with my health, having had both experiences. So let's say, well, this is not even a let's say, this is the truth. Like I have had that experience in my life of watching screens, being on my phone right up until bed. And I have had the experience of turning off my phones before bed. And I am going to tell you, my sleep is drastically different when I turn off before bed. My energy is better. My mood is better. I find I sleep more consistently throughout the night. I like who I am better because I have that REM sleep, which helps me control my emotions. I'm not as irritable. Like, I like who I am so much more with better sleep. That is directly linked for me to removing screens. That for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, and I notice, like, I'm not perfect. The nights that I do end up slipping and I'm like scrolling on, like picking out my Peloton workouts or something like that right before bed, it takes me longer to fall asleep. Like I will be doing the same routine, but it'll take me an extra half an hour. And because my body is so used to waking up between 5 and 5:30, I wake up at that time anyways, and I just lose half an hour of sleep because it takes me longer to fall asleep, right? I got a quick question for you. Think someone you know would benefit from this episode? Consider sharing with a friend or your community on Instagram. I love seeing you share what you're learning when you tag me on your Instagram stories. And it just really helps us feel connected and part of a bigger community of entrepreneurs who prioritize their health and their business. I love finding new podcasts through friends, so I'd be so appreciative if you shared the Becoming Limitless podcast too. But like I said, I have had both experiences now. What it feels like to go without screens for a while and use screens. And now you just get to make the decision on what works best for you, right? You get to make the decision having had all the facts. Because here's what I find. Many people like to make assumptions on things saying, it'll be too hard. I couldn't do an hour before bed of screens, or I could never eat the way you did, or I could never get up in the morning and go for walks, or all of these things. They just say it's too hard, I couldn't, excuse, and this, but they never have actually tried it. But what if you tried it and you're like, oh my gosh, this actually makes a significant difference? That is where you start getting that motivation to continue, right? Think of it like a quick win. The more quick wins that you can have, or the more quick wins I can get my clients right off the bat, the more motivated we become and the more invested we become in our health, right? Because we're already starting to experience what it feels like to have the success, and not the success of 5 massive life-changing habits forever, but just making one small change this week. I feel like we are conditioned to go after the big experiences. I was actually just talking to a client last night, and we were talking about some different types of healing and therapy she's doing. And she goes, I just don't feel like this is, I thought it would be different. I thought I would be healing faster. I thought I would be feeling more or feeling differently. And I said, I'm so curious. Where did you get the expectation that it should feel different? Like, what if the healing was just meant to be incremental and small? Like, what gives our brain this idea that when we improve our health, it should be massive, noticeable changes? Like, what if we just look at the compound effect of adding up all of these small decisions? Because you know what the really cool thing about small decisions is you make them at a rate in which you can start building them into your routine, both building time into them, energy into them, focus into them. And you are able to layer in all of these small decisions. And you're right. In a month, is your life going to look entirely different? No. In a year? Yup. You add 52 small changes in a year? Yup. Because some of these experiments, to be quite honest, you're going to do and you're like, yeah, I get it, but I honestly didn't notice the difference in that. And so you can just choose to drop it and move on to a new habit, right? Because sometimes I feel like we also hold on to these habits because we saw them on Instagram or somebody said that this is the key to doing this. And so we're like forcing ourselves to do these habits that just never worked. And for me, that was meditation, right? I'd always been like, okay, I'm in this industry, I should do meditation. Doesn't that make me a fraud if I don't do meditation? And I kept trying to force myself and I hated it. And then I gave up on it for so long because I just thought that's not for me. But it wasn't until I kept experimenting, and I experimented for 1 week with something called sound baths. And you've probably heard me talk about them on the podcast before. Google them if you don't know what they are. But sound baths, I'm going to do 2 of these for the next week and see how I feel. And guess what? I liked how I felt. And so guess what I did? I said, okay, next week, I'm only going to do 3 of these for the next week. and I'm going to see how I felt. And I'm like, I actually like this a lot better than meditation. So I'm just going to get consistent with this habit right now. And so it's kind of really cool that like if you think about layering in and the compound effect, there are things you know you like. There are things that you know work for you and create a result. And there are also things that you know that you can keep and are sustainable, because while you are implementing these small one at a time changes, what you will notice is that you are going to go through busy seasons in your business. You're going to go through times when your kids get sick and they're home from school, or your dog's throwing up, or whatever's happening, or there's something goes wrong in your business. You got to work extra hours. You're going to see yourself in live time go through busy seasons. And you're going to be like, here are the habits that are the most important to how I feel. And I know this because I've done experiments. Here are the habits that make me feel the best. These are the ones I know to keep doing. I had a client that I worked with last year, and she went through, there was a trauma in the community that she lived in. And she said to me, she goes, Tanessa, I'm so glad I implemented everything that we've done in our work together in a very systematic fashion, because I knew in this period of grieving and being there to support the other families, like I do not have the capacity to do all of these habits, but I know of the 10 habits I'm doing, which 3 change my life the most. And I'm going to stick to those 3, because often what also will happen is we get into these busy seasons and we just drop everything. We completely stop doing everything. We stop drinking water, sleeping well, eating well, moving, all of it. So what if this process not only gave you a sustainable plan, but what if doing this experiment style process let you know what worked the best? Like you're like, oh yeah, I remember when I implemented no screens before bed, that was huge. And like bigger than going for a walk in the morning or eating a salad at lunch or 10 minutes of meditation, whatever it is, like you know what to keep, right? And I really love this. And I feel like this process is just so doable for your brain, because if you don't love the result of the habit, you don't keep it. It's not forever, but if you do love it, you now know what works, right? Then you can modify it, you practice it again, or layer in something else, right? You don't always have to be improving every week either, because there are some weeks I'm just like, okay, this was it. For example, when I gave up coffee, I was like, okay, I actually like how I feel. And I'm going to do this same habit next week as well, because I just really want to reinforce this and make sure it feels good, right? So you can modify the habit, you can drop it, you can practice it again, or you can layer in something else, right? And like I said, if you don't love it, you go back to what you're doing right now. There is nothing to lose, because you want to know what the worst case scenario is? What you're already doing. So imagine this with my meditation example. I had found traditional meditation didn't work for me, and I wasn't doing it. And I opted to experiment with sound baths. Let's say that sound baths didn't work for me, okay? And I didn't like them. The worst case scenario was I'd go back to what I was already doing, which was no meditation. So you are currently living your worst case scenario right now. How cool is that? Like, what if you were currently living your worst case scenario right now, and the only thing that can happen is life could get better. Like I found sound baths and now my life is better. So if I didn't even try it, I would have guaranteed the worst case outcome. But instead, I tried it and it's working, right? That's the other thing is like with my husband right now, we're trying to figure out, he's got a lot of congestion and allergies and everything like that. And so we are considering, experimenting with the low histamine diet. And just to really help and see if this helps his allergies. And it's so interesting. We were just like, okay, well, the low histamine diet, if you actually look at it, it's like it takes out a lot of the foods that we eat. And so we were really going to have to change stuff up. And we were talking about it last night. And I said to him, I was like, you know what? Let's do this low histamine diet for a month. I'm with you. I support you. If at the end of the month, you feel wildly better, you aren't sneezing and stuffed up and disrupting your sleep. And if you don't feel any better, we just go back to the way we're eating right now, worst case scenario. But what if this low histamine diet clears up all of these allergies that you are experiencing? You can breathe again, you can sleep through the night, you don't feel cranky because you're like always like your head feels pressure all the time. Like, oh my gosh, would that not be worth this experiment? Right? And that's what I love it, the buy-in. And we committed to doing this for a month. And the worst thing that happens is we end up right back where we are now. But the best case is that he feels wildly different. So glad we just committed to it for a month, right? It's not forever. And I've also had a client that has done this with getting her husband to buy in with cooking every other night. And it's so interesting. When we started working together, she's like, honestly, the biggest obstacle is my husband. He likes fresh food every single night. He doesn't like leftovers. And I was like, okay, cool. What if we sold him the idea of just doing it as a 2-week experiment? And really, that time you free up from not being in the kitchen every single night cooking, like let's just propose the idea of what if we only cooked every other night and had leftovers every other night? So cook one night, then leftovers, cook one night and leftovers. And then you focused on what you were gaining with the time that you were not in the kitchen cooking every night. At the end of 2 weeks, if he wants to go back to spending all that time in the kitchen, go for it. And guess what happened? He got to the end of 2 weeks and he loved all of this extra time with his family that wasn't spent cooking in the kitchen. Loved it more than reheating old food. And the crazy thing is, by the time her and I wrapped up our coaching together, her family was on a cook twice, maximum 3 times per week eating schedule. And that's what we do in our house. Like, we just value evening walks, time together, going to our gym, so much more than fresh food every night, right? And it just allowed his brain in that situation to see both. Like, he knows what it's like to cook every night. Now he knows what it's like to cook every other night. What decision does he want to make based on that? And he found that now that he had both experiences, was so good. But like I said, the secret in that is to layering. One small habit at a time. It allows you to gauge the sustainability and tweak what is going well or not so well in real time. And you build it a sustainable system for your health. You know, I'm all about systems. And I also think it's cool because it builds your confidence in yourself and it begins to help with your self-esteem, because many of the clients that I work with that come into my programs, they are at that point where they're frustrated with themselves. Like, I don't get it. I can't stay consistent with it. I just don't have the confidence that I can sustain it anymore. Or, you know, what happens when I'm in a busy season, right? And this is how, when you create something like this, you build that confidence because you're like, yeah, I can do this. This is doable. And I love to hear clients say that. This is so doable and it's fun, right? Because like I said, this all should be fun. It's just a big experiment. It is a slow and steady process, but it is worth it. It is so cool. And it just comes down to approaching your health instead of with this like forcey energy of like, I should be doing this. I must do this. I have to do this. What if it's just fun? What if we looked at our health through the lens of curiosity? Kind of like this, like, I wonder if, would it be fun to test fill in the blank? Wouldn't it be cool if, what if this was the solution I'm working for? I wonder what the results would be if we tried. What if this worked? Do you see how those are all curiosity questions? They ask questions about possibility if something were to work. What is something different I could try that would be fun? What would make this more enjoyable? Like, ask yourself better questions, right? This is how you come up with what experiment to run. Like, if you ask yourself right now, what would make going to bed at 10 p.m. fun for 1 week? Come up with answers. Ask your brain to do the work. Do not let your brain tell you, I don't know. Because I can tell you, if you come to my programs and you show up to one of the calls with I don't know as the answer, it's fine, but I won't let you settle for that answer. Ask your brain to come up with an answer. And if your brain still says I don't know, then start guessing. What would make going to bed at 10 p.m. fun? Because you know what makes it fun for me? I love to read and I love a good book and I love to jump into bed and pick up on a good story that I've been thinking about during the day. I love that. You know what I also love? I do my facial massage for my physio exercises while I'm in bed. And right now I'm doing a little bit of work on my neck and my jaw through physiotherapy. And I just find that these jaw massage exercises, they just relax me so much. And it's such a lovely experience to just have that quietness at the end of the day and that space between putting the kids to bed and going to sleep. And I love that. And it's so fun. And I only found that by experimenting because I used to be on my phone until bed. I did. And so I want you to ask yourself questions. What would make doing this action item fun? Okay? It keeps the pressure low. Coming from curiosity keeps you from beating yourself up because you didn't do everything from your perfect plan, perfect the first time. curiosity. And I know like a lot of the self-help, like the rest, self-care stuff online really advocates for building compassion with yourself. And I 100% agree. Compassion with yourself takes the pressure off of all of this. However, I've worked with many clients, and I'm going to tell you, compassion is not easy to get to if you've never had compassion for yourself. So being able to say to yourself, like, it's okay that you took a day off. It's not going to make a difference. Like for me, in my experience, that is easy to say. But for someone who has what they will report as a track record of failure, a track record of inconsistency or giving up, it's really hard for them to be like, it's okay, you got this, because their brain is like, well, every time you tell yourself it's okay, you quit. So I find that if you're having trouble having compassion for yourself when things don't go as planned, tune into curiosity. It's so much easier to come from curiosity and ask questions and notice and observe from a place of fun and curiosity. Is so much easier to get into than compassion. So the experimenter's mindset, I honestly think this is one of the keys to success here, and I'm sharing it. And if you love this experimenter's mindset, then you would absolutely love my program, Becoming Limitless. It's for 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs. And we basically take the experimenter's mindset, we combine it with data-based decisions and strategies that are designed to fit in your entrepreneurial schedule. And we mix it with coaching, because realistically, like you've seen just through this, how much of our brain is really what's holding us back. It's our brain thinking this is too hard. I can't commit forever. I need to make this big plan. That coaching component is what helps your brain unpack all of the belief systems that you have that have created the result that you have right now. We actually have an entire accelerator inside of the coaching program called The Courage to Lead. And it's all about creating self-leadership in your own brain, how to take charge of your own brain so that you can fulfill all of these dreams and goals that you want, right? And it starts with really understanding why you're creating the result you are. And then you marry that with strategies and tactics like the experimenter's mindset. And this is how we create such consistency and depth of change inside the program. And if this is something that is interesting to you, I'll leave a link in the description for the program. It's a group program, a community of driven entrepreneurs who are all focusing on this life of health and enjoyment and freedom. But that'll be there for you to check out. I highly recommend you come change it, because experimenter's mindset is just one of the amazing strategies that you will learn about on your journey to becoming limitless. So I hope this has been a helpful episode. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, if you love listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out my coaching program, Becoming Limitless. Together, we'll build a sustainable system for your health that is based in science and data that fits seamlessly into your busy schedule. Join me over at TanessaShears.com/becoming limitless. I'll see you there.